Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. Back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom. Back with another in our series on 10 minutes to better land navigation. What we're going to talk about today, before we move to maps, we need to talk about staying found. How do we go out here and explore an area if we don't have a map of that area? When we get to maps, we'll talk more about where to find maps, how to create your maps, all those kind of things, because I think it's important to understand that. For now, what we want to understand how to do is go out and explore an area, keep a travel log, and then utilize that travel log, which we talked about being so important, to stay found or to be able to find our way back from where we started. And that's where this travel log is going to come in to be very, very important. And that's the other reason that we talked about keeping everything in paces to begin with and not trying to do math to change things to meters. Because if you don't have a map that's already measured in meters or yards or miles or whatever scale you're using on your map, then the only measurement system you need to worry about is your own pace. Now, if you're giving someone else that information, that may change things. If you are transferring something that you've done in the field to a map to upgrade a map, and we'll talk about that later, then obviously you have to transfer those things or you need to convert them to meters. But for this purpose, for staying found and not becoming lost, we need nothing but paces, so keep it easy on yourself. So I've got a mock travel log that I've put on a little portable whiteboard here. It's very, very simplistic. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 points. As if we got out of a vehicle or started at a trailhead or got off our ATV and started walking through the woods. And now we've ended and decided, okay, it's getting time for us to get back. Now, do I want to, A, do reverse azimuth on every one of those points to get back? Or do I want to be able to figure out where I'm at now versus where I started and figure out what the straight line distance is in paces and the azimuth so that I can plug in that travel bearing and go and get there in no time at all? That's what we're going to talk about today. Stay with me. So, staying found is the key. We're going to base this on our travel log, and we're going to use a method called positive azimuth uniform layout. This is the most simplistic format of Paul. It can be very, very complicated, and it's not taught well by very many people. The most basic understanding of this is how to stay found, and it's easy to understand. That's what I want to teach you today. Stay with me, and we'll get started. Now, we're going to transfer the information from our travel log to the ground. We're going to make a ground mock-up of the route we've walked. To do that, we need some type of measuring system that we can convert paces into increments. It doesn't matter what that is. Stay with the base 10. It could be 10 knots equally spaced in a string. It could be 10 marks on the back of an axe handle. It could be 10 hash marks in a stick you cut off the landscape that are evenly spaced. It could be some type of a tape measure if you carry that. It could be the back of your notebook where the centimeter measure is in 10 equal increments. It doesn't matter. The increments that is already in, per se, centimeters, inches, whatever it may be, are arbitrary because we're going to use paces. It just needs to be 10 equally spaced divisions. All right, so for this demonstration, I just took a stick and I used a saw blade from my Silky saw and I marked 10 saw blade widths in this stick and then put a saw kerf at each one of those marks. This is my measuring device. It's going to be the same every time because I'm going to use this throughout my ground map. So it doesn't matter what this is. It doesn't really matter what those spaces are as long as they're equally spaced and I decide what each space is going to represent. Each space could represent 10 paces. Each space could represent 20 paces. As long as it's divisible by 10 easily. Each one of these could represent 100 paces, but the larger scale this map is on the ground, the more accurate it's going to be, especially if you have a lot of points. All right, so once we've created our measuring device, we're going to need a stake of some kind for every point that's in our travel log. Again, that can be a stake cut off the landscape, It could be a tent stake out of your kit, it doesn't matter. Now you can put string in between those stakes to better visualize the route if you want to, but it's not a necessity. So you don't have to have string for this unless you're already using it as your measuring device anyway, and you've got it. So we're gonna take this out to the ground and we're gonna get started. I'm going to use orange stakes for you, and we're gonna use some orange mason line so that you can actually see or visualize the route better on the ground. But those things are not necessary to do in the field to get the answer that we're looking for to stay found. Now, again, positive azimuth uniform layout. We have a positive azimuth because we have each azimuth positively identified in our travel log. The uniformity comes from the measuring system. Paces converted into increments on this stick. And the layout will come on the ground, which we'll visualize in just a minute. Let's go out back. All right, this is the same exact kit that I've been using for 10 years to teach this here at the Pathfinder School. So we're gonna use that today. We've got our measuring stick. We have a mallet to bang our stakes in the ground with. I've got orange stakes sitting here for visual. I've got orange mason line here for more visual. And I've got a large erasable board there with our mock travel log in it and a compass. You're just gonna need the stakes, the measuring device, your notebook with your travel log in it, and something to pound those stakes in the ground, and you'll be ready to go. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need a starting point. So we're gonna pound a stake in the ground right here, just like that. We want that thing straight up and down as we can get it. That point doesn't matter where you put it. It's just like you stepped out of your vehicle and shot an azimuth. So this is where I started, no matter where it's at. So using our travel log as a guide, our first azimuth was 46 degrees. So we're going to come to the top of this compass and we're going to plug in 46 degrees as best we can get it, all right? Just a little bit more there. Now we're going to put our compass on the ground next to our stake, and we're going to rotate this compass until the needle's in the doghouse, and that will be a 46-degree azimuth. So we'll lay this on the ground, and we'll rotate it till the needle's in the doghouse. So this was our direction of travel. Now we need to measure our first leg, which we have on our mock travel log. I just screwed my compass up putting that metal beside it, of 210 paces. Now, if each one of these hash marks is going to represent 10 paces, then we're going to need to use this stick twice because we've got 100 paces on this stick, and one more mark will be 210. So 21 marks will be 210. So we'll lay this on the ground on the exact line of our azimuth, just like this, and we'll measure. And what I generally do is I will take a stick, another stake to kind of mark my place. And I'll put a stick in the ground. And then I'll come up and double check that. Look out, kitty cat. I'll double check that to make sure that this line is still on that same azimuth. I'll go one more. And then I need one more beyond that. And this stick goes in the ground right here. Now, if I want to double check myself because my map scale is large, this is where a piece of string, a piece of bank line or something like that comes in. Because we can take that string and we can lay that, just put an overhand loop in that dude and lay it right on top of this stake. Pull it to this stake and lay our compass on that line to ensure that that azimuth is correct. And then bang our stake in the ground. Now, if we want to visualize what we're doing, we can leave that string in. Just take a couple wraps of that bad boy over the stake. A couple half hitches, there's one, there's two. pull everything tight and put it on the ground. And we'll leave that there for visual sake for you guys, but it's not necessary to have it there. All right, our next azimuth was 63 degrees. So now we're gonna go up here, we're gonna plug in 63 degrees. And that's difficult because you got 2-degree increments on the compass. So it's gonna be a little less than 2 marks past that 60. And sometimes that's hard to visualize. All right, there you go. We'll stay with that. Now, the cat's on our travel log. Get off that. You just put paw prints all over the travel log, knucklehead. All right, lay the compass against the stake. Again, inside, inside, inside. I'm staying to the same side of the stake every time. And this is my line of travel now, this direction. So now, I'm gonna measure again. This was 200 paces. So that's gonna be 2 of these. Now, if you want to, if you've got a string here, you can lay this out. There's 1. So I'll get a stake. Make sure my azimuth line is right. There's 100 paces to there. And one more full length is 200. You'll hear. And we'll double check our azimuth line. And we'll pound that in the ground. Now we're going to do this same thing for every point on our travel log. And once we've got that stake in the ground, we move to the next point. Now this leg was 105 paces. So we're gonna have to divide one of these spaces in half, basically, in our head. So we're gonna go 100, get our stake, put it in the ground, and go half of a mark more. And that's gonna give us that 105. All right, once we've finished our travel log, we've got our points in the ground, and we can see the route that we walked. We know where we started. We know exactly where we ended. Everything is measured in paces. Now all we need to do is connect the dots from the last point to the first point. So we're going to take our string. This could be a stick, could be whatever you want it to be. And we're going to connect it to, and now we've created an entire route as if we had come back to where we started. And all we need to do is come over here and lay our compass on this line. Put the needle in the doghouse. And we know that our azimuth back to where we started is 296 degrees. 296 degrees. And then all we have to do is measure it out in paces. So there's 100. There's 200. $300, 400, 410, 20, 30, 40, 50, about 460 paces will get us back to where we started from on that azimuth. So what you've done here is you've basically made a map on the ground of exactly what you did, that you can visualize a starting point and an ending point, and everything is measured in paces, so you know how many paces it is from where you stopped to where you need to go back in the exact azimuth. Okay, so that was a quick introduction to positive azimuth uniform layout. It gives you a way to dead reckon your location. And dead reckoning basically is no more than understanding where a moving object is right now, being you, moving, from a last known point of origin, which you had, your last point on your travel log before the one you're standing at, and then you can judge the distance and direction back to your start point. With this system, you can never get lost if you are diligent with it. This system goes way beyond what I showed you today, but this is the most simplistic version of using it to stay found. You can use this system to create entire maps on your own, along with other techniques that we do teach here at the school in more advanced classes and things like Land Nav Intensive. However, this is something that everyone should understand at its most rudimentary level, because with it, you can never be lost. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back to another video in this series, moving on to maps, in the next video. Thanks, guys.